Welcome to another video. Today we're going to go over Apple's Keychain module. We're going to build an app that allows us to save passwords, update them, and delete them from our keychain. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it KeychainManager. And we're going to import the security framework. Next, we'll create our class called KeychainManager, and we're going to create a protocol for our KeychainManager to implement. Here we'll create functions like getPassword, which will return an optional string in case we can't get the password from the keychain. We'll create a savePassword, which will take in a string. This will be a bool that tells us whether we successfully saved the password to our keychain. We'll create another function called deletePassword, which will also be a boolean. And lastly, we'll have a function called updatePassword, which will take in some password data. Next, we're going to force our KeychainManager to conform to the KeychainManagerType, and soon we'll get a warning saying we need to implement the protocols. Alright, so for now we're going to fill this in with some nils and trues. The first function we're going to implement is getPassword. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a query of type string any, and we'll pass in a ksec class as string, and we'll pass in the ksec class generic password. Next we'll create a security attribute, and we'll just give it its generic string. We'll say user account. And lastly, we're going to add a value that we're going to return. So we're going to say ksec return data, and let's actually see what this key represents. So here it says it's a key whose value is a boolean that indicates whether or not to return item data. In our case, we want to return the password from our keychain associated with a user account. So we're going to set this to true. And next we're going to create a status variable that says security item copy matching, and we're going to pass in our query as a CF dictionary. And here we're going to have to pass in an opaque type. So we'll create a variable called result of type any object, and we'll pass in a reference to it, or an in-out variable, I should say. And next, we're going to guard whether the status is error sec success, otherwise we'll return nil. And next we need to coerce our result into a data object. So we'll say guard let password data equal result as data, and we'll say let password equal data, string data, and we are going to decode it from UTF-8. So if we can't get the password or create a string out of it, then we'll return nil. Otherwise, we're going to return the password. Next, we need to implement savePassword. So we're going to create a data object out of the password that we get from the user. So we'll say let password data equal password, and then we'll say data using UTF-8 encoding, return false. Next, we're going to copy almost everything from this query, and we're going to modify this to be ksec value data, and we're going to pass in our password data. So when we make this item request to our keychain, we will actually add it successfully to the keychain. So we are going to make a variable called status, and we're going to call sec item add, and we're going to pass in our query, as CF dictionary. And here we don't really care what the result is that comes back, and we'll pass in nil for our result since we don't need to care or worry about what the result comes back as. We just care about our status. Next, in order for us to determine whether we were able to successfully save the password to the keychain, all we need to do is return whether the status equals error sec success, and we're good. Okay, so we've implemented savePassword. There might be an improvement on this in the case when a user decides to save their password with a password that already exists in the keychain. They can override it. So what we can do instead is we can say if getPassword doesn't equal nil. Again, this hasn't been implemented yet, but we'll update it later. If getPassword is not equal to nil, that means we need to update the password with the password data that we got from the input password. And otherwise, we will just do this work. Okay. Next, we need to implement deletePassword. So we're going to do something similar to what we did in savePassword, except we'll just remove one of the attributes. So we don't need this. We just need to delete whatever the password is associated with the user account. So next we need to create a status called secItemDelete, and we're going to pass in our query, and we're just going to return whether the status is error sec success, meaning that we've successfully deleted the password from the keychain. And finally, I need to add CF dictionary. And finally, we need to implement updatePassword. So what we need to do is we need to create a query to get the password from our keychain, and then we also need to update the current password. So we just need a simple query to update. So we'll call this update query to distinguish between our query to get the password and our query to update it. So here we'll just need to update this to ksec value data, and here we'll pass in our password data, and here we don't need to add anything. Next, we'll create a status called, and we'll pass in our query and our update query. And finally, we will return whether the status is equal to error sec success. It looks like we've implemented all of our functions. Let's double check if there are any mistakes. So here for savePassword, we are secItemAdd, deletePassword secItemDelete, updatePassword secItemUpdate, and getPassword. We have secItemCopyMatching, since we are querying our item from the keychain. So now let's go over to our content view so we can implement the UI. So here we have our content view where we're just going to replace everything that exists with our own implementation. So we're going to just set the spacing to 16 so we have a predictable spacing between subviews within our VStack. Next, we're going to add an image. We're going to make a lock. And next, we're going to set the image scale to be large and the foreground style to be tint. Next, we need to create some state variables so we can keep track of our current and new password. So we'll create a state variable called current password and another one called new password. And here we'll create a text that will have the current password. So whenever we get the password, we'll just display it on the screen with current password. And next we'll have a secure field so that we can input our new password. So this will be enter a password. And this will be new password. And next we'll have our buttons. Actually, let's modify the secure password field to be centered. And we'll set some padding. Next, we'll create our save password button. And we'll just tell the Keychain Manager. Actually, let's go back into the Keychain Manager and add a singleton of it. So we'll just call this static let shared equal Keychain Manager. So we'll say Keychain dot shared save password. So in here we'll put new password, and we will say if let new password or password equal KeychainManager dot shared get password. We'll say current password equals password. Otherwise we'll say current password failed to get the current password. Okay, next we'll create another button called deletePassword. And here what we'll do is we'll just say KeychainManager deletePassword, and then we'll set the current password to be nothing. And let's change the color. Foreground style to be red. Okay, great. It says here the result of the call to save password and delete password is unused. Let's change this so that it's discardable. So let's say discardable result and discardable result. So if we go back, these warnings will go away. So let's run our app and verify that everything works as expected. So here we will enter new password. Let's save it, and it saves a new password. Let's add a 1, 2, 3, 4 and verify that it updates the password. Great. And if we delete it, it discards it. And so if we save a new password, it'll save this new password. So that's it. Everything works as expected. And if you want to take this app and do something extra on top of it, you're more than welcome to do it. This is just a basic playground app that you're able to learn the Keychain Manager from. If you learned something new from this video, be sure to leave a comment and like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more videos from me in the future. See you next time.